Lesson 2, I will create conversion tables to solve problems. So in lesson 1, we talked about using some conversion tables to solve some problems. Today we're going to do the same exact strategy, except we're going to be using some different units of measurement. I want you to go ahead and get out your lesson 2 practice sheet, and you can tell we're going to be talking today about gallons and quarts, quarts and pints, and we're also going to be talking about pints and cups. Now, there is a really fun practice that I want you to do on Symbaloo that will help you to learn a little bit more about gallons and quarts and pints and cups that could help you to remember these conversions a little bit easier. So first of all, let's talk about gallons. Now, you know what a gallon is. Whenever you go to the grocery store, you buy a gallon of milk. Well, a quart is a smaller gallon. Now, think about what you know about words that start with qua, like quarter. How many quarters are in a dollar? Well, there are 4. That's because quart comes from the Latin root that means 4. So there are 4 quarts in a dollar, just like there are 4 quarts in a gallon, just like there are 4 quarters in a dollar. So if there are 4 quarts in a gallon, how many are there in 2? Well, that would be 8. And then we would have 12 and 16. I want you to go ahead and finish in the rest. Okay, so hopefully you counted by 4s, and you have 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, until you got to 40. All right, so let's talk about quarts and pints. So for every quart, there are 2 pints. So for every 2 quarts, there are 4, 3 quarts, 6, etc. I want you to fill in the rest. Okay, so hopefully you counted by 2s, and you have 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Okay, so let's talk about the rules for these. So the rule for converting gallons to quarts is, what did we do to every gallon to get quarts? We multiplied. What did we multiply by? We multiplied by 4. What about going from quarts to pints? Well, obviously, every time you went from quarts to pints, the numbers got bigger. So we are multiplying. What did we multiply by? Well, this time we multiplied by 2 because there's 2 pints in every quart. Okay, now let's talk about cups and pints. Well, there are 2 cups in every pint. So this is going to look very similar to your quarts and pints. So if we have 2 pints, we have 4 cups, 6, 8, 10, and we'll just go ahead and fill in the rest of this together. So the rule from converting from pints to cups is, again, multiply by 2. Okay, so let's look at this little chart here. If I have 1 gallon, how many pints do I have? Well, we know that if we have, I want you to draw this G is going to stand for gallon, okay? And inside a gallon, how many quarts are there? There are 4, so I want you to make these 4 Q's. And notice I'm making these Q's kind of round. I want you to be able to write inside these Q's. So there are 4 quarts in every gallon. And then how many pints are in every quart? There are 2, right? So I'm going to put 2 P's. Now notice these P's. I'm going to make the P kind of big because I'm going to put something inside the P. All right, so 2 P's inside every quart. So how many pints would be in the whole gallon? There would be 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, now It wants to know how many cups are in a quart. So let's talk about how many cups are in a pint. Well, how many cups are in a pint? There are 2, right? Okay, so I'm going to make this line a little bit thinner. I'm going to change my color here so we can see. So inside every pint, I want you to put 2 C's like this. It's hard for me to do it this small, but you can see what I'm doing. I want you to put 2 C's. These stands for cups. So there's a cup, a cup. I want you to do this inside every pint. You'll be able to read yours a little better than you can read mine, because yours probably is a little bit bigger. Okay, now, how many cups are in a quart? So here's my quart, and there's 2, 4 cups in 1 quart. Now let's look at how many cups are in a gallon. So let's count by 2's. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So there will be 16 cups in 1 gallon. All right, now let's get to our problem set today. All right, so go ahead and write your name, and you're going to notice that we are using the RDW process. That means that we're going to read, we're going to draw, and we are going to write. So Susie has 3 quarts of milk. How many pints does she have? Well, we could draw our big G, couldn't we? That would certainly work too. And you've already actually drawn that. But I wanted to show you something else, how you could use a tape diagram to solve this. So if I have 3 quarts of milk, I'm going to use my tape diagram to divide this into thirds. So each of these is going to be a quart. Quart, quart, and a quart. Well, how many pints are in a quart? Well, there are 2, right? So I could say 2 pints, 2 pints, 2 pints. And the question is, how many pints does she have? So that would be 3 times 2, which equals 6. She has, or I could say Susie has 6 pints. All right, let's try number 2. Kristen has 3 gallons and 2 quarts of water. Alana needs the same amount of water but only has 8 quarts. How many quarts of water does Alana have? Now, is this a total problem like we had in number 1, or are you hearing some comparison words? I'm hearing some comparison words too. I'm hearing how many more. So that tells me that I'm going to have to draw my tape diagram so that I can compare. So it sounds like Kristen has more. So I'm going to draw Kristen's tape diagram bigger than Alana's. And then I'm going to go ahead and label. So I'm going to put K here for Kristen, and I'm going to put A here for Alana. Now, this is gallons and quarts, okay? And then I have quarts, and then I have quarts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and convert Kristen's 3 gallons to quarts. So I can go back and look at my conversion table. And if I go back here, I can see that in 3 gallons, there are 12 quarts. Okay, so I know that Kristen has 12 quarts in her 3 gallons plus 2 more quarts, which would be 14. So I'm going to go ahead and write this as 14 quarts. Alana only has 8 quarts. So I want to know how much more does Kristen have than Alana? So think about this. Where is the part that I'm trying to figure out? Well, it's right here, right? I'm trying to figure out this difference. How much more? So if I want to know how much more, what would I do with these 2 numbers? I would subtract. So 14 minus 8 equals 6. So Alana needs 6 more quarts to have the same amount as Kristen. Okay? All right, let's look at number 3. Leonard bought 4 liters of orange juice. How many milliliters of juice does he have? Do you hear any comparison words? I don't either. So we can just do a total here, okay? So let's do a total. So how many parts should we divide our tape diagram into? Well, we've got 4 liters, so let's divide it into 4 parts. So each of these is a liter. A liter, a liter, a liter, a liter, right? So how many milliliters are in one liter? I just about said it, didn't I? 1,000. So we're going to go ahead and put 1,000 here. And each of these stands for milliliters. And I want to know how many milliliters does he have in all. So that would be 4 times 1,000 milliliters equals 4,000 milliliters. So I can say Leonard has 4,000 milliliters of juice. All right, so now we're going to be completing some more conversion tables. And we already know that there are 4 quarts in a gallon, right? So if there's 4 quarts in a gallon, we know what the rule is. What's the rule? Multiply by 4. So I'm going to take 3 times 4, which is 12. 5 times 4, which is 20. 10 times 4, which is 40. Now I could get out a calculator here, or I could just come over here and just solve this. 13 times 4 wouldn't take me very long at all. But if you notice, I have 10 and I have 3. 10 and 3. 10 and 3 together equal 13. So if I take 12 and 40 and add them together, I should have the same amount of quarts that there are in 13 gallons. So 12 plus 40 would be 52, which is the same answer you would get if you came over here and you did 13 times 4. All right, so let's do quarts and pints. There are 2 pints in every quart, so we can just multiply by 2. So I've got 2, 4, 12, and 20. And I could double 16, which is not hard at all. But if you notice, I've got 6 and 10. Together, that equals 16. So I can just add these 2 numbers, which equals 32. All right, so the rule for converting gallons to quarts is, again, multiply by what? Multiply by 4, because quart means 4. And then quarts to pints, we multiply by 2. All right, so now we're going to do a little bit of problem solving. I have 8 gallons and 2 quarts, and I want to know how many quarts that is. Well, if I go back and look at my conversion table, I have 8 gallons. I don't have it in this one, but I do have it in the one that I did at the beginning, right? I can go all the way back to this one, and I know that 8 gallons is equal to 32 quarts. Okay, so I can say that 8 gallons is the same thing as 32 quarts, and then I add that to 2 quarts, and that gets me 34 quarts. All right, so now I've got 15 gallons. Okay, so let's go back here to right here. 15. Is there anything that we can use here to get a total for 15? Well, there sure is. We could add 5 and 10 and get 15. So we can add 20 and 40. 20 plus 40 equals 60. So this is 60, and then I add it to this 2, and that gives me 62. Okay? Now let's do quarts and pints. So these are a little bit easier because you're just multiplying by 2. So I've got 8 quarts, which is the same thing as 16 pints. I add that together, and that gives me 18 pints. I want to see if you can't do these last 3 by yourself. If you get stuck, you can always press play, but I want you to pause the video and try to do them by yourself. Go back and look at your conversion tables and see if you can figure it out. Okay, so let's take a look at how you did. So for 12 quarts, there are a couple of ways you could have figured out that that was 24 pints. You could have taken 12 and thought to yourself, well, 12 plus 12 is 24. Or you could have looked back at your conversion table and you could have added the numbers for 10 and 2 together. 10 is 20, 2 is 4, and that would have given you 24. Either one of them would have given you 24, and then you add that to 3, and that gives you 7. So that one wasn't so difficult. Now let's take a look at number E. So I had 26 gallons. So there are, again, a couple of ways that you could solve this. I went back and looked at my conversion table really quickly. And I noticed that I had 13, and I thought to myself, well, 2 13s equals 26, because 13 plus 13 equals 26. So if I took 52 and I added that to another 52, that would give me 104. You also could have said, well, I know that 25 is like quarters, and that 25 times 4 equals 100. And then you would have one more 4 left, so you could have added that together to get 104. Or you could have just come over here in the margins and done 26 times 4. Either way, you would have ended up with 104. You add that to 3, and you get 7. Now, for the last one, they tried to trick you. So we've got 32 gallons. I just went over here in the margin and just did 32 times 4. I could have gone back to my conversion table, but honestly, this was just as fast. So I did 128, and then I added that to 2 quarts, which gave me 130. But you'll notice it doesn't say quarts here, it says cups. So if there's 2 cups in a quart, I had to double 130, which gave me 260. All right, so now we're going to answer a couple of true-false questions. So 1 gallon is greater than 4 quarts. Is that true or false? Well, I know there's 4 quarts in 1 gallon, so this would be false. It says if your answer is false, make it true. How can I make this true? Well, there's a couple of ways, right? I could change this to 3 quarts, or I could change this greater than sign to be an equal to sign. All right, 5 liters is equal to 5,000 milliliters. Well, how many milliliters are in a liter? 1,000, right? So 5 times 1,000 equals 5,000, so this is actually true. Now it says 15 pints is less than 1 gallon and 1 cup. Woo! All right, so let's convert this to pints. How many pints are in a gallon? Well, I know that there are 4 quarts in a gallon, and I know that there are 2 pints for every quart. So I could do 4, which is how many quarts there are, times 2, which tells me that there are 8 pints in a gallon. So I've got 8 pints plus 1 cup. Is 15 pints less than 8 pints and 1 cup? No, this is false. So if I want to make it true, I could just change this to greater than. All right, so Russell has 5 liters of a certain medicine. If it takes 2 milliliters to make 1 dose, how many doses can he make? All right, so I'm hearing that he has 5 liters total. So that tells me that I'm going to make this a total 5 liters. And I know that it takes 2 milliliters to make a dose. But here's the question. I don't know how many 2s I can make. So if you remember, we can do this. This means I'm trying to figure out how many 2 milliliters there are in 5 liters. Well, I know that 5 liters is equal to how many milliliters? 5,000 milliliters, right? So if I've got 5,000 milliliters and I want to put it into equal groups of 2, that's division. So I'm going to take 5,000 and divide it by 2. So if you remember, when we have all these zeros, we can look at the basic fact. Now I can't take 5 and divide it by 2, but I can take 50 and divide it by 2. 50 divided by 2 is 25, just like money, 2 quarters and 50 cents. But then I've got these 2 zeros here. I have to add those to my answer because 2,500 times 2 does equal 5,000. So Russell can make 2,500 doses. It's a lot, isn't it? 5,000 milliliters divided by 2 would be 2,500. So each month, the Moore family drinks 16 gallons of milk, and the Seiler family goes through 44 quarts of milk. Which family drinks more milk each month? Do you hear a total or do you hear a comparison? I hear a comparison. All right, so I'm going to start with, I'm not sure which one's more. So in this case, it's not asking how much more, it just says who drinks more. So I've got these at different lengths, but I really don't know which one's bigger. I'm going to go ahead and put M for Moore family and S for Seiler family. So know that the Moore family drinks 16 gallons. Okay, how many quarts are in a gallon? 4, right? So if I took 16 times 4, that would give me 24. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 2 is 6. So this will be 64 quarts. And the Seiler family drinks 44 quarts. So actually I've got this backwards. So which family drinks more? It would be the Moore family. The Moore family drinks more milk. All right, let's take a look at number 9. Keith's lemonade stand served lemonade in glasses with a capacity of 1 cup. If he had 9 gallons of lemonade, how many cups did he sell? All right, so again, I'm not hearing any comparison. I'm hearing a total, right? How much lemonade does Keith have altogether? He has 9 gallons. And he's trying to put these into groups of 1 cup. And we're trying to figure out how many cups can he get. So first of all, we're going to figure out how many cups are in a gallon. How can we figure that out? We could go back and look at one of our conversion tables, right? So what if we went all the way back here and we looked at this? How many cups are in a gallon? Well, what's it say right here? 16 cups are in a gallon. All right, so we need that information, so keep that information in your brain. All right, so let's go back to where we were. All right, so we've got 16 cups in a gallon, and we've got 9 gallons. So we want to know how many that is. So we're going to do 16 times 9. So 6 times 9 is 54. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 5 would be 14. So we've got 144 cups. So how many cups could he sell? He could sell 144 cups. So Keith could sell 144 cups of lemonade. All right, so today we were talking about converting, but we were using measurements of capacity. We were talking about gallons, quarts, pints, and cups. The important part to remember is that there are 4 cups in a gallon. There are 2 pints in a quart, and 2 cups in a pint. If you create a conversion table, then it's easy for you to go back and solve the problems.